I'm curious how you navigated and are navigating criticism. I think that especially when you're in a multi-generational church and you are leading them through change,
Yeah.
there's critics on every side. And just curious how you personally, as a leader, have found the courage to keep leading. And how do you respond to that personally?
It's been quite tough because you got to remember, my church, I have some staff that don't even really speak English. So if they're going to criticize, you could be in a different language. You don't even know what they're saying. But on that end, yeah, Jason, I don't think I'm immune to it. Just like anybody else listening to this, obviously criticism is part of the job. Anytime, one I don't know who I can attribute this quote to. Someone told me, and I've taken it to heart. Leadership is disappointing people at a rate they can take. So you're going to disappoint someone. But if you do it too fast, it's too furious, you are going to get slammed.
I love that line. What is it? Leadership is disappointing people at a rate they can take.
They
Oh,
can
I love
handle.
that. Yeah, I love that.
Because someone's going to be disappointed. And if you're not disappointing anybody, you're probably not leading, right? So yeah, I've been learning to little things like making sure that I'm reading the signs right, because in my culture, there's a lot of subtle criticism. Like, I don't say it to your face usually. It's like beneath the surface, you get criticized. So learning to kind of just ask hard questions and say, please be honest with me. I've learned to kind of, the whole idea of dying on the certain hills that you're willing to die on. Not everything you should be dying on it, because there's going to be criticism about everything. I learned that communication is so important. I mean, a lot of times it's misunderstanding and miscommunication or lack of communication that's killing you. And I remember someone had written in my 40th and birthday book. They put one together, and they said that if you, that they realized that for instance, they said I have a kind heart, and if people criticize me, they don't understand that I'm trying to do something kind actually. And that kind of blew me away to think, number one, he thinks of me that way, but because sometimes it's a miscommunication, misunderstanding part. It's not that they're criticizing your plan. They just don't understand, what's happening, and certainly that's something I've experienced many times, where after I explain it with a little bit more personal touch, people are like, oh, okay. So after like months of criticism, they're good with you as long as you talk to them. So communication channels, especially in a larger church, are so important. I realized that I got to put so much more energy in communication than I ever thought I needed to put in. Like, one-time memo is not going to do it. So feedback, communication, all that kind of stuff is probably important. I don't know about you, Jason, but I definitely feel you got to embrace it.
Yeah, I feel like I'm not good at it, and it's like, it's that terrifying thing. I think everyone's looking out into their future of trying to lead courageously, use their voice for things that matter. And it can be like really fearful to make change. I was speaking to a pastor earlier this week, and he's got a multi-ethnic congregation, and there's one sort of more senior group in the church that are a group of families deeply connected, and they're super resistant to change. And there's a fear that comes in because he knows there's some change that the church needs to make so they can continue to reach people far from God and disciple the next generation. But it's this fear around, I know that there's this strong, and in some ways, like, this church, these people built the church. There's an honor there too, right? But there's just such an awareness of that pushback and that fear of disruption. And sometimes, like, comfort can be the enemy of any good change and meaningful change.
Yeah. I'm not too fearful of broad criticism, but what I don't want to see is the toxic kind, that they're unwilling to change and they're negative all the time. Like, we are the same. Like, those who have been at the church longer than you are going to be largely your most vocal critics, right? It's not usually the new guy that's been there 2 years, the young guy that's like, hey, I'm full of fresh ideas. It's usually the guy that says, well, we've done it this way for 25 years, and please don't change it, because our church is going to implode on itself if it does. And I find with that group, that's a big, significant group in our church, especially on the Cantonese side. I'm trying to, like, build, little connections with them, take them take those out for coffee and just listen to their voice. Once they kind of listen for about an hour, they kind of express it. The positive people, usually the non-toxic people, will usually go, okay, yeah, I support that. I kind of also challenge them, like, if you can be a mentor and a supporter for what we're doing for the next gen. I mean, I'm not even talking about my gen. Like I before COVID, I went to visit a youth group, and I used to be the youth pastor, and I'm walking in thinking I'm young and cool and whatever. And I walk in and I'm talking to this guy, and I realize he's like 19 and I'm double his age. And then I said to myself, to the staff after, I know you guys think I'm young, but I'm fighting for him. I'm not even fighting for my generation anymore. Like, I'm fighting for my son's generation now. And whatever it takes to reach that generation, we gotta go and try it. Versus, well, the 40, 50-year-olds, we've done it this way and it's worked. Well, I'm sorry to say, but the younger generation, they adapt real quick and it's different. So I'm always trying to challenge them to think ahead of the mission rather than the preferences, right? Like, most of what we're fighting for preferences, not about reaching people. So that's sort of my kind of hill I'm willing to die on, is like, hey, is this advancing the mission, or it's just sort of keeping a few people happy?